So, Liana, welcome to the show. It is amazing. I mean, what better way to start this Wednesday, with someone with someone with such badassness as you. You know what I mean?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for coming.
Perfect,
I
perfect.
agree. This is a great way to start a Wednesday.
Right, right. So, starting with the interview now, tell me, like, let's go back in time, right? And tell me,
Mhm.
where does this journey through holistic mind and body coach started?
Well, it, I guess it probably started a little bit when I was in college without realizing it because I developed a bit of an eating disorder. I started to get very aware of mental health and
Okay.
stress and all of those things. And I realized I didn't really have tools to manage how I felt. But you're in college, you're not doing much about it. Fast forward, I moved to New York City to pursue acting, and had a lot of fun. It's a very up and down kind of crazy career. But by my mid 20s, a lot of the stuff that I started having digestive issues, and then started in my early 20s having anxiety and depression. And by my mid to late 20s, I was really sick with a lot of really weird, undiagnosable, like autoimmune things. So I was having some intestinal bleeding, my hair was falling out, like hormonal issues. And I was seeing all of these different doctors. I was having allergies, skin things, fatigue things. And I'm in New York City seeing all these specialists, and no one has answers for me. And it was real. I was like, I shouldn't feel this sad. I'm like not even 28 years old. Like, I'm feeling horrible. What is this? And I remember it got so bad at a certain point where I was like late night Googling, which you should never do, right? When you're like going to Dr. Google. And I was convinced I had colon cancer. So I scheduled a colonoscopy, and they were like, listen, you have some pretty severe intestinal inflammation. We don't know why. So come back in a year when things get worse, and we'll put you on steroids for the rest of your life. And I
Oh,
was like, I'm so sick already. Like, I have fatigue issues. I'm having these mental health issues. Like, you want me to get worse than this? I was like, this is crazy. And then I remember I got a second opinion, and they're like, well, we don't know what's wrong with you, but we want to put you on steroids now. And the steroids were like as scary as everything that was going on in my body. So there was just something inside of me that was like, this doesn't feel right either. And I remember taking sort of my stack of test results and just starting to do research, like, what did intestinal inflammation mean? What could it be related to? And it was really wild because, again, this was, over 10 years ago. I found a lot of answers connecting everything that was going on in my body, going wrong, right? I was like, wait, there is research showing that, like, intestinal inflammation, it can be related to depression, and it can be related to hormonal issues, and all of this stuff where I'm putting these puzzle pieces together where doctors weren't. And I ended up finding this one doctor in New York who is a specialist with the microbiome, which is, all of the bacteria that lives in your gut and your intestines that controls everything from your immune system to your mental health to your weight. Essentially, it's very important for it to be healthy. And I had never heard of it, so I read his book because he was wildly expensive and didn't take insurance, and I was a broke actress. And he had this protocol, which was pretty simple in terms of like taking out things like processed foods and sugar and caffeine and alcohol, and adding some supplementation in. And it was kind of this last ditch effort. I didn't really, I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. This feels kind of like a little too out there for me, but like, I'm suffering. No one else has answers. And it was so wild. I remember within 12 days of doing this protocol, and it was just crazy to me because when you are eating a lot of processed foods, and I actually didn't have that unhealthy of a diet, but I was very sensitive to things like gluten and dairy. When you start pulling that stuff out of your diet, sometimes you get withdrawal. So I was feeling, the first week or so, I felt pretty crappy. But then I distinctly remember on the 12th day, and this was going to be like a 4 to 6 month process. On the 12th day, I woke up, and it was like someone had taken like a really dirty Instagram filter off of my life or something, where it was like all of a sudden I had this energy, and I was like reconnected to myself, and I felt good, and I felt like food tasted different, and it was just really strange. And I realized that I had had years of anxiety and depression that were gone. It took 12 days of changing my diet, sleeping more, pulling out caffeine and alcohol. And I had a therapist who had been trying to put me on antidepressants for a while, and that just hadn't felt right to me. And I was like, 12 days of this, me taking like probiotics and stuff like that. Like, that was what I needed to do. And it was mind blowing. So I was very hooked. I was really interested. And it took it took about 6 months to reverse pretty much all of my symptoms. And it was wild. I was like, I'm seeing doctors all the time. I'm paying all of this money, I'm doing all these blood tests, and I just had to change my diet and sleep more. And like, it was just crazy to me.
mm,
So I was like, I have to learn more. I was so inspired. So I ended up looking into like becoming a nutritionist or a dietitian. and no one was teaching any of the stuff I had just learned. So I ended up finding this, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, which was a health coaching school. And I was like, I don't even know if that's a real job. Like, what is that? Like, this is weird. But I remember I talked to someone there, and I took, they had like a complimentary course you could take. And it was so fascinating. And I couldn't learn enough fast enough, right? So I ended up becoming a health coach through that school. And it was kind of life changing because I had felt so badly before, and I just couldn't find answers. And through, my diet and understanding the body and our relationship and like the mind body connection and how the gut informs the brain, I was able to really change my life. So it was just this funny thing that I was still acting. I still wanted to be an actor, but this was kind of my hobby. And I ended up teaching workshops to actors around like nutrition for performance, which led to me teaching at an acting conservatory. And then I was like lecturing at NYU a little bit. And then just through referrals, people would come to me because they were having like weird health issues. And so I had these two careers for a while. It was really interesting that like one where I put all of my energy in, and I had some great successes. I was on the Tonight Show for a while. I had some movies that did all right. I did a lot of commercials, but I would just, put all my energy in it. And on the other side, I had this other like hobby almost that just kept growing without me even paying attention to it. So I like kind of stumbled backwards into this career, and just because it was so helpful for me and changed my life and I was so passionate about it. But it truly, the further it went, the more I realized how much I liked it, but I would never give myself permission to do it because, since I was little, I was like, I'm going to be an actor. This is, I worked so hard. I went to an acting conservatory. Like it took a little while to get established in New York. And I was like, I'm going to do this till I die. You know what I mean? And it was funny because the pandemic was this weird silver lining for my career, because it was the first time in 14 years I stopped auditioning because there was just nothing happening.
Totally.
And then at the same time, there were so many people who were having physical and mental health issues that I kind of opened my doors, lowered my, I was like, whoever needs help, I'm here. Like, I want to be of service. And it was the first time in my life where I was coaching all the time and I wasn't acting, and I was happier than I'd been. And it was kind of this weird crisis for my ego because I was like, wait a minute, I'm an actress. This is what I do. And it was like, I'm so much happier. And, it took a minute, but I put the acting stuff on hold at first, and then I never went back. But yeah, I've had this business for like over 7 years, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I fully shifted gears and decided I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's such a journey.
I'm sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love it because you basically been through everything.
It's true. It's true.
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, back when you were in college, you just don't take attention to your body, right? I mean, you just live the moment and you just don't care. I mean, and whenever you feel bad, you're like, okay, something's wrong, whatever, and you continue doing it. So.
Well, you don't even think about it. You're like, no one puts together, like, I ate this thing and it makes me feel this way. Or just like, I'm someone who's really affected by alcohol, right? There's certain alcohols that make me really sad or anxious the next day. And like, what do you do, especially in the United States when you go to college? Everyone's just drinking all the time. So all of a sudden I'm having all this anxiety and I don't know what it's related to. And I'm not sleeping enough. I'm having more coffee. So I'm pretty sensitive. All of a sudden I'm having all this crazy stuff go on. And I don't even know enough to put together. It's what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember back in college, there was like the final, like the finals that you need to pass them yes or yes, like literally. I remember that day I didn't sleep like for 3 days because I was, I mean, I've always have been like the worst student in the world. So on the finals, I needed to, to make it to pass it. So I didn't sleep for like 3 days, and trust me, that third day, I was literally hearing voices, like I remember because I was drinking either Red Bull, like energy drinks, barely eating, just smoking a lot. It was horrible. So like literally at the third day, I remember that I passed everything, which was really cool. So I went home. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna sleep now. And I remember like those, like I remember that as I was getting to bed, I was starting to hear noises, like voices. I was starting like to see shadows. I was like, okay, I'm really getting crazy, I really need to sleep like right now. I slept, and I slept like for a total day, like one day literally. And when I woke up, everything felt totally different, totally better. But I was like, I'm never doing this in my life ever again. No.
Yes, well, that's smart. You actually paid attention. I think I didn't for a while. I was like, whatever, I'm gonna have more fun.
Yeah,
Too much fun.
Yeah. And what what are some of the benefits when you optimize your mental health? Because yeah, actually on the during the pandemic, it is so interesting the fact that lots and lots and lots of cases start to appear about depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
things that back then we didn't pay much like attention to it. And also
Hmm.
back then, whenever you say that I had depression, they would say, "Oh, you're crazy," or "Why you feel sad," or like things like that. But with the
Right.
pandemic, it is so interesting the fact that most of those cases appeared, and then more people start to pay attention to it. So back to my question, what do you think that are some of the benefits when you start to optimize your mental health?
Well, I totally agree. I think another silver lining of the pandemic was normalizing mental health issues, right? Because I
Totally.
think we all go through periods of anxiety and depression. Like that, that's just, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's just life signaling to us that something's off, right? Our body's like, this isn't right. We're not doing something great.
Yeah.
We're not taking care of ourselves, or we're in a situation that doesn't feel good. And it was such taboo for years ago. And it was like, just take a pill or you might be
Mm,
crazy. Where now it's like, no, this is something we all experience. And then the pandemic was so scary, especially in the beginning. And like, no one knew what was going to happen. Of course, we're getting anxiety, right?
totally.
And it's so funny because culturally, especially like in the US, there's such an emphasis on physical health, right? It's like go to
Mm,
the gym, be on a diet, you want abs. But the craziest thing is like your brain and your relationship to your brain affects everything. So when you start to focus on optimizing your mental health, everything changes. Like simply, like if you wanted to start with nutrition alone, there are certain things like, in a lot of people, like processed gluten creates things like brain fog, makes it harder to focus. If you're having too much sugar all the time, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, that can make it hard to focus. That can create things like anxiety over time. When you're eating in a way that spikes your blood sugar all the time, that can make it hard to focus, to concentrate. That can make it hard to emotionally regulate.
mm,
So looking at your mental health from a diet perspective, you can change a lot of things. But then beyond that, and it was interesting because I sort of fell into meditation later. And I had this one because I was seeing a naturopath when my body was healing, because my regular doctor is like, what's this weird thing that you're doing? I don't know. I can't help you. So I'd like find someone a little bit more holistic. And I remember I'd gotten about 80% better in my healing, but I had like some fatigue issues,
okay.
some stress related issues, which is really common with autoimmune stuff. And the woman I was seeing was like, you have to start meditating. I'm like, why would I do that? That's not going to be helpful. And eventually she sort of wore me down. And it was really fascinating to see what happened to my body once I
Mm,
started meditating. It was like that last 20% of healing um, happened. So I was like, okay, this is really powerful. Like, really, what you do and how you learn to regulate stress and understand your brain and how you talk to yourself has a direct effect on your body. So I'm a big proponent of meditation. And I think, there's so many different styles. It doesn't really matter what kind. But the thing about it that's so interesting is it starts to give you insight into how you talk to yourself and what you believe. And we all have that voice in our head that's like a little bit of an asshole sometimes,
oh
right? That
yeah.
tells us like we're not doing a good enough job, we don't have enough money, we're not pretty enough, we're too fat, like all
Mm,
of that crazy stuff. And when you're not aware of it, we tend to believe it. So here you are telling yourself how bad you are all the time. That affects how you feel. That creates stress in the body and affects how you show up in life, right? But once you get aware of that, there's a little bit of space there. And you can have those thoughts, but there's space to redirect them. You have space for conscious choice.
mm,
And so once you start to look at optimizing your mental health, and it's funny, with clients, I do this. Like, we start with things like sleep and movement and nutrition, because if you're eating the wrong things and you're full of stimulants, it's really hard to tell that, like, you have a lot of anxiety often, or, you just have a lot of noise in your brain and it's hard to know what's you and what are maybe your anxious thoughts. So when you optimize your brain through just your physical body, things get a lot calmer, you feel more like you, and then you have the ability to start to pay attention to how you talk to yourself. And much like going to the gym, meditation is almost like a muscle, right? Where you're strengthening other parts of your brain that make it easier to be calm, happier, to communicate, to read other people, to be more empathetic.
yeah.
And when you start optimizing your brain, you can talk yourself, in any situation. When you start to feel frustrated or put yourself down, you can redirect those thoughts, right? And instead of going down that rabbit hole of negativity or anxiety, you can pull yourself out and,
Mm,
redirect how you feel during the day. And like, think about it too. When you have a really good day where you're feeling confident and feeling good, the actions that you take are different. how you go out into the world and how people respond to you are
Absolutely,
different.
yeah. Hmm.
So it just it's a ripple effect on the rest of your life. So I think, optimizing mental health is one of the first things we should do. And again, it's not prioritized often. Like no one's taught how to do it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And for example, back when you were mentioning meditating, and it is so interesting because I mean, even till this day, there's still, yeah, like for example, with whenever you will have like this conversation, for example, with my friends, they think that meditating is like like you put your mind in blank and you basically start levitating and things like that. I think
Right,
so.
right.
I do believe that that we still need to have that conversation, that
Yeah,
meditating is not like that. It's like there's like multiple different ways you can
yeah.
meditate. It's not like one, this is it, and you have to do this and that. So
Right. You
yeah,
don't have to sit on the floor cross-legged. You're never going to need to levitate. You never
yeah,
need to clear your head. Truly, it's just a focusing tool, right? You're
totally,
strengthening a different part of your brain. So it can be as easy as counting to 10 over and over again. Like it doesn't need to be more difficult than that. And I
yeah.
think people put a lot of weird, like you have to wear a crazy robe or
You
hum.
need a,
It's like, no,
yeah,
you don't have to do any
absolutely,
of that.
yeah. You need your Zen garden, or things like that.
Right,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah. It's
right.
crazy. It's crazy. And so during this process, right, when you were optimizing your mental health, what are some of the foods that you wouldn't recommend when you were in that process? Because we all know that sometimes, I mean, like whenever you will eat something that your body instantly hated, I mean, it feels like totally, it's not only the stomach, but you like the whole body resonates on that bad
Yeah.
food you said that you ate. So let's say that I start this process, optimizing my mental health. What are some of the foods that you would say don't?
I would minimize, and I think there's room for all food, right, in the diet. But if we're doing too much of it,
Yeah.
this is where we get in trouble. So I would minimize anything with like a lot of added sugar or added sugar substitutes. Those
Hmm.
can be problematic. Highly processed foods that have a lot of grain in them, any kind, because those behave like sugar in your body, and that can cause a lot of problems. And it's interesting because a lot of this stuff causes problems in your digestive system, in your gut, in your microbiome. And because that's always communicating with your brain, that's why we have issues.
Yeah.
Inflammatory oils, a lot of like seed oils aren't really good. Too much caffeine, depending on how you respond to it, can be difficult for people. Too much alcohol, obviously. I always tell people if they want like a very simple way, kind of looking at on the other side, is like add more vegetables, add more whole foods. So things that, look like very close to what they originally looked like at the source. So like a pear or some eggs or a piece of salmon, like simplify, and the fewer ingredients, the better. And the closer to being alive, the better.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, food is just information for our cells, and real whole foods, our body knows exactly what to do with. It creates healthy cells in our body. Which obviously affects our brain. And
Yeah.
with processed foods, it's just very confusing. So it's like, imagine your body to be this like beautiful sports car. You want to put the best gas possible in it, right? So it runs well. And I think we don't think about when you're eating processed and more like junky foods,
Totally.
that's going to affect your mental health. So yeah, I would tell it, when in doubt, eat more vegetables.
Yeah.
Like that'll
Yeah.
help right away.
Yeah. And water.
Oh yeah, hydrate. That's great. Stay
That's
away from excess sugar, excess like processed grains, and just eat more veggies, drink more water. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like, for example, true story here, my brother suddenly he started to feel ill, like super ill, right? He even went to a doctor, and then he told him that he had like super high pressure, that he was like uh, having anxiety, like a lot of things
Mhm.
like that. And then I tell him like, hey, do you drink water? And he was like, what? He was like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, the doctor is saying here that you need to drink water. Do you drink water? Of course I do. And I was like, you know what? In my 30 years of life, I have never seen you drink a bottle of water ever. I see you either drinking alcohol or something different, but never water. I think only, or So then he was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing it. Fun enough, couple of months pass of he constantly drinking 2 liters, of water, and he feels great. You know,
I mean, it's sometimes that simple. That's the crazy thing, right? And everyone's body's a bit different. So it's kind
totally.
of up to us to figure it out. But when in doubt, keep it simple. Again, drink more water, eat more veggies, eat more, healthy fats are also really, really important for brain health, and something that were
Mm,
like demonized for a while in the media. So, avocados and olive oil and nuts and fatty fish, all of those are really, really good for the brain. So
totally.
lots of veggies, lots of healthy fats.
Yeah, yeah. Just don't take too much of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you'll know, and like, but that's like the basis of keto, right? And keto's really healing for a lot of people. It's just like a
Mm,
lot of fat. So
mm,
it it depends case by case for people, but most people aren't eating enough. So you could probably get away with more healthy fats than you think. And like
yeah,
I always joke, like I am probably like 1/3 olive oil. Like that's how much olive oil I consume. I just put it on everything all the time
yeah,
because I know I feel a lot better. And you think about it, your brain's made of fat. It's good. Like if you don't have enough healthy fats, your hormones aren't balanced. So that's like one thing that I think in the 80s and 90s, it was really, everyone was really shunning fats and afraid of them because they thought fat made you fat, when really sugar and carbs make you fat, and fat
totally.
is good for satiety. So it's actually a weight loss food, and it's
Yeah,
good for your mental health.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I would, I would probably say that, that if you want to start like doing this process, right, that you should first take a look at your body. I mean, as we were saying, the fact that everybody is different and this diet might work for you, or this
Yep.
process might work, or probably not, because we sometimes see, right, that you want to take this crazy diet, or you want to start
Yep.
try this crazy lifestyle, and maybe it works, yes, but you feel just super tired, and I think that is
Yeah.
one of the problems why so many people hate diets, or hate
Yeah.
things like that, because they think that it's basically you stop eating all of it and you just focus only on vegetables, and that's it for like
Right.
four,
Right.
six,
Right. Right.
seven
No, you
months.
need balance. Right.
Yeah, that I think that is another conversation that needs to be told, saying like it's okay. I mean, you can eat everything, but of course
Yeah.
you need to have a balance to it, because
Absolutely.
yeah, that is look
I always
that I
talk.
think. Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, 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 please.
Oh, I always just talk about the 80/20 rule, right?
Yeah.
Where like when I work with clients, like 80% of the time I want them eating foods that they enjoy, but that also make them feel really good. And
Mm,
if you do that roughly 70, even 70, 80% of the time, the other 20%, 30% of the time, you can, have a cocktail with your friends. You can have
totally.
birthday cake, you can have dessert, you can have ice cream. But, really taking time to figure out what fits into that 80, and my 80 is going to be different than your 80.
Absolutely.
And just starting to pay attention to how things make you feel when you put them in your body, and not just physically. Like look at things like energy, look at things like focus, look at things like digestion. And sometimes like something like dairy can take up to 48 hours to negatively impact people, so really like paying attention. And I always tell people too, often they'll come to me and they're like, I don't feel good or this or that. And I'm like, what do you think it is?
Mm,
They often know. So like listen to that knowing, and then take it out of your diet. I always tell, if people aren't sure if they're like intolerant to something, just take it out for 21 days and introduce it back in slowly, and your body will very, very loudly tell you whether or not you should be eating that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. By the way, if you heard dog noises in the background a couple of seconds ago, I mean, I live with three dogs, so it's
What kind of, wait, you have to, I'm a dog lover. What kind of dogs and what are their names?
a husky, kind of,
Oh, huskies are so
the
cute.
second one is kind of a collie. I mean, he's adopted, so I don't know the exact
Uh-huh.
breed, and the third
Uh-huh.
one is a pit bull. His names are the husky. His name is Dante. The
Uh-huh.
collie one is Chili, and the pit bull is Rocco. So.
Oh, I love dogs. They're the
Yeah,
best.
they're the best, but it's like what I ended up discovering is that they have been in all of my episodes. You hear them all the time. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's
Well,
impossible.
you're a human. That's all right. That's all right. And then if
You know,
someone doesn't like dogs, we don't want them on
absolutely,
the podcast.
absolutely. But anyway, now checking on your link tree, we can see
Hmm.
like several different pages here and there. What are some
Hmm.
of the yeah, like what can you tell me about them?
Yeah. So obviously there's a link to my website. I do one-on-one coaching. So
Okay.
obviously that's, an hour, depending on how many sessions you sign up for. And it's almost, I tell people it's like somewhere between like seeing a therapist and a nutritionist, right? Where
Mm,
you're doing a lot of the talking. I'm teaching you some stuff about nutrition, and we're really figuring out what works for your body.
yeah.
And at the core, what I really try to get people to do is really learn to listen and trust and honor themselves, because again, you're the only one that knows everything that's right for you.
Mm,
And a very easy way to do that is through food, right? Like if something doesn't agree with that and you kind of think it doesn't, and we find that out, it allows you to trust that voice. And that's the same voice that's saying like go to the party where you like meet your next boyfriend or whatever it is,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like a really interesting essentially just helping people listen, really optimizing their physical and mental health, and then getting out of their own way. Because I
Mm,
mean, we're usually the ones in their own way, in our own ways, and making life harder for ourselves. And that's where we have to like look at, our asshole brain sometimes, right? That is being so rude. And then the other big thing that I do is I run this 3-month program for women. And there's like a PDF in my link tree where people can find that, and this came out of the pandemic also, where so many people were really having a hard time. And this is similar to what I do in my one-on-ones, but this is just more of a group setting, where I combined physical and mental health, and we sort of attack it at the same time. So we'll go over the latest in nutrition science. We'll talk about like hormone and blood sugar balance, and we tap into neuroscience a bit. And then we go on the other side of things, because once people start feeling really good and their brains are clear, some of the other underlying issues come up. So we do like mindset stuff. I introduce some meditation, some positive psychology exercises, some of that stuff. And in 3 months, they kind of get this reboot from the inside and the outside at the same time. It's pretty cool. And the interesting thing I didn't realize was the community aspect of it is so powerful, because you're watching other people's healing journeys too and learn from them. So I've started building out this like really interesting community of people who really want to, heal and optimize their bodies. And it's a lot of women who have, and I mean, what woman doesn't these days, have like a complicated relationship with food and her body, or maybe a history of like an eating disorder or something like that. So it's a lot of people really wanting to learn to love themselves. So part of it is like a self-love, self-trust journey, but through understanding your specific body. But my one-on-ones are essentially the same. So there's a group setting, there's that. And then I write a bit. I work with some journalists, so I contribute to articles, and you'll find some of those in my link tree around, just regular health issues. And then I do stuff like this. So like speaking stuff sometimes. I had there was a period where I was doing stand-up in New York. So I do kind of like this kind of thing. So it's fun to marry all of my favorite things, talk about like the nerdy hobby that I'm into, and gut health, and just get to chat to cool people.
I love it. So basically it's all about yourself there.
Yeah. And just ways to work with me, and some information, articles that are informative. Yeah.
Totally. Wow. Okay. Now let's say that I want to, start with your process here, basically to help me out, tell me, where do I sign?
Well, in my link tree, you can find this. There is a link to sign up for a complimentary discovery call. Okay. I like to do those with everyone who's interested, just to get a gauge of what you're looking for, where you're at. We talk about your goals. I answer questions. You get to know me a little bit, to make sure we're a good fit. And then from there, we sort of decide, does it make sense to do one-on-one? What are you looking to achieve? But truly, there's no pressure there. I always tell people, like, don't be afraid to sign up. I love meeting people. I love connecting to people. And because I was sick for so long and didn't feel good in my body and didn't have tools, really empowering people and giving them, even like answering a few questions in 45 minutes is something I'm really, for free, is something I'm so happy to do, because I believe that feeling good and liking yourself and knowing how to feel good in your body is a right that we all deserve. And there just isn't a lot of great information and a lot of conflicting information out there. So I tell everyone, sign up for a discovery call, and we'll check in and really see what you're looking for. And then from there, we'll decide like how much, is it a group? Is it a one-on-one? And that's where we go. But with a lot of people, when you actually start working with me, because most people do have a complicated relationship with food, or they're not feeling well, or there's digestive issues, I start with this 10-day sugar detox that was created by this doctor, Dr. Mark Hyman. It was really to reverse metabolic syndrome and like to help with blood sugar balance. Okay. But I found it when I was in nutrition school, and it really helped. It's an anti-inflammatory diet, and inflammation is the root cause of a lot of disease. Like, we're all genetically predisposed to different things, but chronic inflammation in the body, which can be turned on by things like stress and diet, tends to be the precursor, right? So it starts to fan those flames of whatever we're genetically predisposed to. So it's this powerful anti-inflammatory diet. And so it helps like rebalance the microbiota in the gut. So it helps heal the gut, therefore healing the brain. It's good for the skin. I find that it's like it's kind of a bit of a panacea, where with a lot of people, it just gives us a really good indication of where you are. And I can send it to you if you want to look at it afterwards and
Yeah.
play around with it for yourself.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But it's a reset that I absolutely love, and I do it a couple times a year because it gives me so much mental clarity at this point. But essentially, it's just pulling out everything that behaves like sugar in the body, much sort of similar to the thing I was talking about that I did for 6 months that healed my body.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's like just really prioritizing non-starchy vegetables, clean proteins, healthy fats, and taking all the stimulants. So it's almost like a biological reset, right? So after that 10 days, what it does, because things like processed food and sugar they change our taste buds, they change our hunger hormones. So we don't really know when we're hungry. There's certain things that we can eat that'll make us think we're hungry all the time, right?
Totally.
And it makes our blood sugar all crazy. So what it does, it takes all of those out of your system, clears your head. Often people lose weight on it because it cools inflammation. And if you have too much inflammation, you hold on to weight. So it's cooling down inflammation. And it's not a diet at all. And this is where people, because I do work with a lot of people with a history of eating disorder, you can eat as much of this food as you want. I tell people, if you want to eat avocados all day and like steak all day long, like totally fine. Like if you want to eat a jar of almond butter, it does not matter. It's not about calories or portions. It's about putting certain foods in your body and taking them out. So people are always like, wait, this is actually good, or I'm never hungry. But it's cool because at the end of the 10 days, all of the stimulants are gone. So what happens is you're connected to your body's natural rhythms and cravings. So all of a sudden I have so many people like, I'm not as hungry as I thought I was, or I didn't realize how much I was eating because I was bored or stressed out. And it starts to untangle that complicated relationship with like food and emotions, and also just like optimize your physical and mental health and make you feel really good. And it's almost like ripping off this Band-Aid, right? Where like as an adult, like our baseline of health, like as a kid, hopefully you were like a happy, healthy kid. And like over the years, your baseline of health sometimes comes down with like stress and maybe drinking and like not enough sleep. And it rips this Band-Aid off. And over 10 days, people are like, whoa, I didn't realize I could feel this good. And it establishes this new normal. And then we'll bring back other foods. And that's a really good way to see whether or not things agree with them. So it's this really, I find it to be just a really tool. And so much of the work I do is just creating awareness. You know, how do things make you feel? What kind of behaviors are you leaning into to avoid your feelings? That kind of thing.
Wow.
A very long-winded answer for that.
I love it. Well. No, don't get me wrong. I love it because it explains basically everything. So that's amazing. Okay. Now, if you could describe your whole career now, you know, or you know what? No, let's change it. If you could describe your whole life until this day, but on a drink.
Ooh.
You can either choose one or you can create one.
Okay. I mean, I feel like it probably has to be like a classic margarita with like salt, definitely salt on the rocks.
Totally.
Because it's funny, tequila is like quote unquote one of the better alcohols for you, but it's still not good for you, right? But it's an upper and it makes most people silly. And I feel like the through line of my career is still silly and fun. And what I used to do I did a lot of comedy, and what I do now is like uplifting and making people feel good. And honestly, like who doesn't drink tequila and feel good, right? But it's a little tart, it's a little bit, you know, and you got some, if you're making it the right way, you got some fresh lime juice in it, right? So you're getting a little bit of vitamin C, you're getting some nutrients. But if you have too many, it's going to cause a problem. And I feel like I had, you know, in my 20s, I was having way too many of those. But if you have the right amount and a nice tequila, you know, you can get away with a somewhat healthy cocktail.
Okay. And what would it be called? Your drink, what would it be called?
Oh my gosh. I guess it's a Lianna Rita.
Oh, I love it. I'll take it. Yeah, I love it.
Then it would definitely be no sugar at all. It would be a nice tequila. You definitely want maybe like an interesting salt that maybe has like some chipotle flavoring in it, and like really big ice cubes. And it's sweetened instead with like a little bit of like Cointreau and then like a little bit of like a fresh tangerine. So we're not putting sugar, we're just gonna add a different kind of vitamin C and like a taste of like a nice orange liqueur. You can tell, if you couldn't tell, for a number of years to support my acting career before I became a health coach, I was a bartender.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely be thinking about this weekend to have a couple of Lianna Ritas. Why not?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. That sounds like a plan. And like my last question here is like, what motivates you? You know, we all have those days that basically we just want to quit, and it's so interesting because sometimes things are just normal, nothing bad has happened, but we
Yep.
get inside into this state of mind in which we just feel horrible, right? We
Yeah.
start to think
Oh yeah.
that we have wasted our time. We start to compare with others, around us.
Oh
um
gosh.
and like getting inside into this toxic bubble, let's say, it's way too easy. But for you, what gets you out of it so you can continue doing what you love and on this journey that you have been creating for so many years now?
Well, there's two parts. And I teach this with my clients where when you get really in a funk, there are like certain things you can do. I call them your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And like for me, one of mine when I'm really feeling bad, I can't get out of my own way, I have to move. Like I do yoga, I go for a walk, like that helps
Mm.
me physically get out. But what like motivates me at my core when I have those days, and I absolutely do it. Being an entrepreneur is hard. I thought being an actress was hard. Like this is hard in a different way. And it's very you can sort of feel like you have like sometimes I'm like, do I even have a business? Like what is this? But it truly is my clients' transformations. And this is going to sound really nerdy, but I have this folder on my phone where I have screenshots of all of the nice text messages I've gotten over the years from clients being like, wow, you can't believe how good I feel, or how much, I
Yeah.
can't thank you because you've changed my life, all this stuff that is so nice. So when I have those days, I go through that and I look at this and I remind myself, because what truly motivates me is like, the fact that like I have tools, and through my own journey and struggle, it gave me the tools to help other people feel really good and
Mm.
like themselves and feel really healthy. And like the fact that I get to sit across, now on a screen from someone and watch them have like a major breakthrough where they physically feel better, or they emotionally feel better, or they feel more confident. Or I had this woman last year who's nearly 70 years old, and she did my program twice. And this at the end of the second 3 months, she spoke up, and she was kind of introverted and shy. And she spoke up and she was so open. And she goes, I don't hate myself for the first time in my entire life. And I
Wow.
want to say thank you because I've learned how to love myself. And
Wow.
you better believe we're all crying. And it's
Yeah.
moments like that where it's like, there is nothing more beautiful than watching someone fall in love with how amazing they actually are. And
Totally.
everyone is. So the fact that I get to do this as a job, I like pinch myself. So on those days, it's like, okay, how do I give? Let me get out of my own way. Let me stop feeling like, oh, I'm getting old or whatever it is, or I don't have enough money, or, I'm not as successful as this other person. And instead of that, think about like, how can I give? Like, who can I support? How can I
Mm.
reach out and like, give someone, my gifts? And that, that helps me get out of it, because there's nothing better than watching other people thrive and like being of service.
I'm speechless now. I love it. I will be definitely be saying dropping the mic, but I'm not gonna drop it. But we can imagine that I just drop it. So
Yeah, it looks expensive. Please don't.
yeah, we're not gonna drop it. But like, that's so cool. I mean, yeah, I'm speechless. But yeah, it
No,
is.
I feel lucky. I feel really like I feel like
Yeah,
I accidentally backed into like my purpose, right? And like I
yeah,
get to do what I love every day, which obviously you do too, which is very cool.
yeah, yeah. But fun enough, like and it has happened actually a lot this week that some people would ask me like, "Are you making any money?" And I would say none. And it was then what's the point of it? I mean, you are doing this, you are taking hours to it, you are taking like 4 or 5 hours to prepare, to search, things like that. Like, why are you doing this? And at first I was just like, I don't have an answer to it, but then later on I started to think about like, why do I actually do this,
Mhm.
And even though that uh that uh that yes, of course, there's no money on chat with Dan at the moment, but like my point here is to actually, I do think that helping others is more important.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, I do think that every story needs to be told. Regardless if you are this huge, epic superstar or if you're just starting. Or you're just
Mhm.
doing your own business here and there. I mean, I do think that every story needs to be told, and I do think also that you can get something out of the story from someone. You can get an idea, or you can get motivated on something,
Mhm.
because sometimes whenever we feel bad, or whenever we have like this like this feeling, we're like, oh, it's impossible to someone to understand how I feel, or like things like that.
Mhm.
So the fact that you can relate with someone with someone else's story totally different than you, from another country, another like way opposites, but the fact that
Yeah.
you could relate on some things, that is really 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 cool. And I do think that that it's something that people needs to know, that
Hmm. Hmm.
that if you want to do something in life, go ahead, do it. At the end, you only have one life, and it will be, and at least like one of the things that I do remember myself, like, every single time that I have like those days as well, I remember
Hmm.
myself like one day I will be like 70 or 80, and I don't want to be this typical saying, why I didn't do this? I wasted my time on this. Like I actually want to do something that makes me happy, and at the end, yeah, I mean, if someone can get inspired out of this whole platform, cool. If they have like a good time, listen to it, also cool. And fun enough, like every now and then I will receive messages also from people saying like, what, it's really cool what you do. What you do inspired me to, because the interview from this people inspired for this person inspired me to create my own thing here. So I'm like, okay, then that's actually good. And I remember, and in one interview that I saw from this a musician, he was saying that if what you do moves one person, then you are actually on the right path. So yeah.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And like, you are so lovely to talk to. You have such great energy. You ask great questions. There's no doubt in my mind this will turn into exactly what you want. You just have to keep doing it. And like, as someone who started out in the kind of that industry, like,
Totally.
I did so much for years for nothing because I loved acting so much and I loved comedy so
Yeah,
much. But eventually it did turn into money. And it wasn't all day every day, but it definitely, I was making money doing it. So there's no
absolutely.
reason why you can't. And it's it's so lovely to talk to you. So you're going to continue just to like cultivate this space and get better at it.
Oh yeah.
And like at some point I'll be like, oh my God, you know that like super famous podcaster, like radio
Yeah,
host? Like
I mean,
at one
I,
point I was on his show.
I mean, I understand it's a process, and I do think that is one thing that, especially these days, people already forgot, the word process, because we're now super used to that. If you want to have something, you can have it super quick. You buy something, the next day you have it at
Right,
home. So
right.
the word process, or the word like that there is this steps that you need to take in order to get into a higher level, let's say. It takes time,
Hmm.
and for some people might that be discouraged, might be like, ugh, like, because we all want, like, yeah, I want like the big contract, sponsors, money, and all of that, like, super fast. But it is a process, and you need to also find yourself in a place in which you feel comfortable, and actually start to create a community in which you can,
Yeah.
I do think, feel comfortable to it, and start to, I think, once you find that, things come instantly, like, with
Yeah.
time, of course. But yeah.
And if we want to put this into a health perspective, right? Like we all know that like too much stress makes you sick.
Oh yeah.
And now there's science behind healing like elevated emotions, things like joy and happiness and contentment and peace and gratitude. Those are healing.
Yeah.
And if you do things that you love all the time, you're creating these healing chemicals in your body. Like you're creating balance, you're bringing in joy, like there are positive things going on. And ultimately we want all the money and the things to feel happy, and if you can find a way to feel happy every day now, working towards that, that's exactly what we're looking for anyway.
Absolutely.
So I mean, you're already doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end, what can I say, Lianna? I mean, your career is badass. I would say it's badass. It's epic. It's really cool. I love what you do, but also the fact that you put that you put on service of to help others. That is really cool, and I think that is also that we need, especially right now during this whole crazy times. So the fact that they can, yeah, that they can lean on what you do, and
Hmm.
they can actually, and you can actually help them out. I love it. I love it. I wait. I'm super sure. Hear me out. I'm super sure that one day everybody's gonna know about what you do, because it's amazing and I love
Oh,
it.
thank you. That's so sweet. That's absolutely so sweet. And I always tell everyone in these situations, look, now we're friends, so you can be in my DMs. So you have questions about this kind of stuff, I got your back, because I truly do. I believe that we all deserve to have these bodies and these lives that we really love. And, I have some information and tools. I'm happy to share them. So
I love it.
forever.
I love it. That sounds amazing. I also want to thank those who are watching this right now. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Make sure to follow Lianna, like, right now. I mean, the video is done, so go follow her, like, right now. I'm gonna leave her like her Instagram link under, below here, so you can follow her. Let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Lianna. She's badass. She's awesome. And again, thank you
Yes.
so much. Have an incredible rest of the week, an incredible weekend when it comes, and I'll be definitely seeing you in the next one. All right. So